Now back to breaking news and the death of Whitey Herzog. He was one of our town's most loved and talented baseball figures. This is from Cardinals opening day last year at Busch Stadium, but he was also at the 2024 home opener less than 2 weeks ago. Herzog was a player, scout. He ended his career managing the St. Louis Cardinals. It was a job he had for 11 seasons, winning a World Series title in 1982 and 2 National League pennants. The beloved manager, originally from New Athens, Illinois, continued to live in the St. Louis area even after his Cardinals career. We go now live to sports director Frank Cusimano with more of his life and career. And Frank, he's one of those figures you thought would be around forever.
Yeah, Kay. In fact, I think for the last 25 years, we would go to Whitey Herzog's house in Sunset Hills, and we'd go down to the basement, and we'd sit there for about 25 minutes and talk baseball and life. And never once did I leave that house not more baseball educated and not laughing as hard as I did around Whitey Herzog. One of the great things about him is he was so candid. He had a low filter rating. You know, a lot of times he would say, you know, Frank, you're going to get me into trouble with me being so candid. I said, Whitey, nobody's going to be mad at you. And he would tell it like it is about players today. I remember one of his theories was that players worked out too much. They were too cut up and too defined. He said what they should do is eat more steak, more hot dogs, more beers, because you couldn't pull fat. And another thing is his style. You know, before Whitey got here, drawing 3 million fans was never even thought of at Busch Stadium. Well, when Whitey put his brand of baseball, which was branded Whiteyball, into Busch Stadium, they drew 3 million every year. And that's because he knew at that park, you weren't going to hit home runs. So let's tailor the team around speed. So they had Terry Pendleton stealing 50 bases, Ozzie Smith stealing bases, Tommy Herr stealing bases, Vince Coleman, Willie McGee, Andy Van Slyke, and they just ran and ran. It's one thing to win 3 pennants, but it's another to do it in that distinctive style, which was built around speed, and that's why 3 million flocked to Busch Stadium when Whitey Herzog was the manager.
And Frank, I was listening to your radio program earlier. The players all talk about how he was like a second father to them. He had such a connection to his players. As one said, he knew when to give somebody a pat on the back or a kick in the butt.
Yeah, that's a great point, Kay. And he was a guy that didn't have a lot of rules. Just show up on time and play hard. And there was never any doubt. You know, a lot of times players second-guess managers in the media or on social media. Every one of those guys knew that they were playing for the smartest baseball guy on the face of the earth. And they weren't going to second guess him. Like John Costello, a relief pitcher, said that when Whitey would come out to take you out of a game, you didn't keep your glove open where he'd take the ball out of it himself. You had the ball on your hand and you handed it to Whitey Herzog out of respect. So that's just another area that Whitey excelled in, respect from his players and treating them extremely well at all times.
And he went into the Hall of Fame in 2010, but he was such a family man. Like, I think of Mary Lou, his 3 kids, 9 grandkids, like 10 great-grandkids. He really had his own team at home. You know, he was so connected, not just to his community, but his family.
Yeah, and Kay, you brought up the Hall of Fame. I was in Cooperstown when he went in. I can distinctly remember Doug Harvey, the umpire, did a taped speech because he was having some cognitive issues, and it went really long. And then after the speech, Harvey went up there and talked for a while and made it even longer. So Whitey goes up there, and he was ticked off, and he said, well, since Harvey went so long, I got to cut my speech short. I mean, it was classic Whitey Herzog. Even when he was on the biggest stage, he was going to tell it like it is. We just lost a gem, a great man, and just a great sports figure in St. Louis. One more quick story. At the bragging rights game, they would always introduce, you know, Governor Bond or United States Senator McCaskill, and everybody would politely clap. And then they'd say, and also here today is Whitey Herzog. And 20,000 people would get on their feet. Everybody loved Whitey. You know, they want to compare Whitey and Tony. Hey, you can compare them as managers, but in terms of popularity in St. Louis, people preferred the beer-drinking Midwesterner as opposed to the guy who drank red wine and came from the West Coast.
Whitey
One of
was
a
a
kind, the
giant.
great Whitey Herzog.
Yeah, he was a giant.
Yep.
All right, Frank Cusimano live for us here at noon. Thank you so much, Frank. I know we'll be hearing much more from you throughout the day. As Frank mentioned, Herzog's brand of baseball in the 1980s was known as Whiteyball. The Cardinals emphasized base stealing and situational hitting over power. He ranks third on the franchise's all-time managerial wins list with 822. Herzog resigned from the Cardinals in July of 1990. He was inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame 20 years later. Tonight at 9:30, right here on 5 on Your Side, remember the White Rat with us. We'll stream Whitey, End of an Era, right here on 5+. Join Mike Bush and a number of guests for a look back at his legacy with the Redbirds. Much more coming up on 5 on Your Side at 4, 5, 6, and 10.